Man, I've locked people up at Christmas dinner. Nope. We go every single day of the year. I've locked people up at weddings. I've locked them up we locked up Santa Claus. We had a drunk Santa Claus. Locked him up. Yeah.
Welcome to the Cops and Riders Podcast. Your host, Sergeant Patrick O'Donnell, worked the streets in one of the nation's largest police departments for over 25 years. Ride along with O'Donnell and his expert guests as they help you navigate the oftentimes confusing and misunderstood world of law enforcement. O'Donnell and his guests on this show do not represent any law enforcement agency. The content of this show is not meant to be legal advice. If you think you need a lawyer, you probably do.
Hey, Cops and Writers, thanks for being here with us today for another episode of the Cops and Writers Podcast. I'm Patrick O'Donnell, and I'll be your host for today's show. This show is listener-supported, so thanks to all of you who keep the show going. I would especially like to thank those of you who are patrons of the show. Your generosity helps pay for the software, equipment, and my time producing this show. Yes, you too can become a patron for less than a cup of coffee or a pint of Guinness. Just go over to patreon.com/Cops and Writers. If you're interested in actually seeing these interviews, head on over to Cops and Writers. Welcome, everyone, as we travel to the city of brotherly love and Rocky, Philadelphia. Today on the show, we have former Philadelphia Warrant Squad member Tristin Kilgallon. Tristin grew up in Philadelphia and started his career in law enforcement with the city's Warrant Unit, tracking fugitives and working the tough streets of Philly. Tristin later moved to Ohio to attend law school, earning a JD and LLM. Tristin went on to teach pre-law and criminal justice for more than a decade before joining LexisNexis, where he now works in the local tech industry helping law firms adopt AI-driven tools. He's also the co-author of Philly Warrant Unit, a true crime memoir about his time working fugitive apprehension in Philadelphia. Please enjoy this fun interview about a unique and small crime-fighting unit that had a large impact on crime that no longer exists. Tristin Kilgallon, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
All right, let's start out with, where did you grow up, and how would you describe your childhood?
I grew up in Philadelphia, Northeast Philly, in a neighborhood called Frankford. Very old part of the city, not a particularly good part of the city. So I grew up in, I guess, what you'd call a pretty bad neighborhood. Not the worst in the city. There were worse parts, but, it was kind of rough. A lot of crime, a lot of fights, a lot of violence. But that was just, kind of how we grew up.
All right, now, it was what did mom and dad do for a living?
My father is a carpenter. My parents got divorced when I was in third grade, so my dad he lived in Jensen Beach, Florida for most of my life, and my mom lived in Philly.
Okay.
My mom was a travel agent. When I was younger, she didn't work like I think I might have mentioned it in the book. Like when I was younger, I grew up on welfare essentially. Single parent home. My mom started working probably when I hit high school, maybe like my freshman year of high school or so, and she became a travel agent for, I guess the rest of her career basically. But that's kind of a dying field now too. So
Yeah, it sure is.
yeah, we
It
just
sure.
Travelocity took her job, I guess.
Yes, yeah, the interwebs and Travelocity and just booking direct and Verbo and Airbnb and yeah, it ain't too hard to get a plane ticket. I remember when you would have to call a travel agent to get a
Oh yeah.
plane ticket.
Oh yeah. I mean that's what she did. She was in the mall for a company called Liberty Travel. I don't even know if they still exist, but she worked for them. And that's what it would be like if you want to go to Florida. You got to go up there and talk to
Yep.
somebody. And arrange now you're on your phone in 5 seconds and it's done.
Well, I remember waiting for like the plane ticket to come in the mail. I thought it was so cool. I was just like, "Oh, cool! Here's my plane ticket." Yeah,
Don't
it's like,
lose it.
yeah, exactly. And now it's like, well, there's a thing on my phone that does that thing, and it's pretty seamless. Yeah, it's pretty easy. Now,
Yeah.
was anybody in your family or friends in law enforcement?
No, honestly, if anything, I didn't have a very good relationship with the cops growing up because where we lived, like I said, not a particularly good area. The only run-ins we'd ever have with the police is if they're locking up somebody we know. And to be fair, Philly police back in like the 80s and 90s were a little bit heavy-handed. So maybe we would be drinking beer in like a school parking lot or something like that, and the cops would roll up on you, take your beer to dispose of it, right? And
Yeah.
they throw it in the trunk of the car because I think I would do the same thing. Um, and that was kind of it. So I didn't really have great interactions with the police. My brother had been locked up a number of times. So, I mean, I didn't have any animosity towards him or any problems, but most of my experiences were probably not great. So I wasn't one of those guys that wanted to be a cop his whole life or, wanted to work in law enforcement, just kind of fell into it.
Wow. So, what did lead you to the Philly Warrant Unit? Did you finish high school and then like go to college, or what did that look like?
Yeah, I went to North Catholic High School in Philly. Then I went to Kutztown University, which is just a small state school in PA. Got a bachelor's degree in political science. My goal was I wanted to work for the State Department, in the Foreign Service. So I took that exam multiple times, but just never got picked. And then one of the alums from my high school had suggested maybe going back to school to get a master's degree because maybe it would increase my chances of getting in at the State Department. And
Okay.
I went and did that. And while I was studying, I was getting a master's degree in international relations at Florida State University. Hey, bud.
Yeah,
and
it's Clark.
I needed a part-time job, so I actually took a gig doing bail interviewing because in Philly, basically, that was a 24-hour a day job. Someone had to be there,
What is
and
bail interviewing?
so basically, when you get locked up and they determine whether or not you're going to get bail, basically there's an interview you go through and then the recommendation goes to the judge. So essentially, we worked downtown in the same building as the warrant unit, and it was just like a bank of desks. And each one of them, or cubicles rather, and each one of them
Yeah.
had a computer screen in it, and each one of those was tied to one of the police districts. So
Oh,
essentially, if somebody was locked up at 3 in the morning or something,
yeah.
they put them in front of the TV, and you just had like a program that you kind of ran through of ask them a bunch of questions. Do you have a job? Do you live in the area? All that stuff to
Yeah.
figure it out for
What
your
kind of
life.
flight risk?
Yep. And you basically just went through the script, and then the computer, I guess, sent a recommendation to the judge. What the judge did with it, I have no idea. But that was kind of what got me into it because I think they were on the fourth floor, and the warrant unit was on the third floor of the same building. So a
Okay.
lot of times, if I would be there at 2, 3 in the morning, in the middle of the night, people would come down to get the snack machine on the floor we were on. So one of the
Okay.
sergeants from the warrant unit would frequently come down there and, you just chat to him because there's really nobody else in the building, a handful of people.
Right.
So you start talking to him and he's like, why don't you come work with us? And I was like, yeah, I'm good, dude. My eyes were on the Foreign Service at that point in time. And then eventually I just thought, you know what? I need a full-time job. Let's give it a shot.
Wow. So, how old were you when that happened?
I think about maybe 27, something like that. 20.
Oh, okay. So you weren't like super young.
No. I'd already gotten out of school, had a couple degrees, and just wasn't going where I wanted to go. So thought, let's give this a try.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
Mhm.
Where were you personally? Were you married? Did you have kids?
Yeah, I was married. And when I was in the warrant unit, I had 3 kids. So that's, complicating factor. And I worked basically last out and then a weekend shift. So towards the end, before I left to move to Ohio, we started doing a weekend shift where we basically did 40 hours in like 2.5 days, essentially. Like you'd come in Friday evening and work till Monday morning. And
Yeah.
it was honestly nuts because the places that we're at are not safe environments.
Right.
You would be extremely sleep deprived. It would be pretty crazy.
Wow.
But it makes it difficult on the family life, I guess, if you're kind of asleep when they're awake and vice versa. But
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. It was fun.
Now, you go to the warrant unit. Now, why not like local law enforcement?
I mean, honestly, like I said, I wasn't really planning to go into law enforcement. So
Yeah.
when the guy
Oh,
upstairs asked you, I thought, okay. Plus, on top of it, honestly, the thing I liked about the warrant unit versus Philly PD, Philly PD, like most city police departments, you get broken down into districts and then sectors.
right.
So, if I work for Philly PD and they put me in the 15th district, I mean, you can move around or whatever, but like most of your career is going to be in the same, however many blocks is in that district, and that's it.
Oh, okay.
Where with the
Okay.
warrant unit, we had technically statewide jurisdiction, so we could go anywhere we wanted. So that seemed a little, I think, more exciting for me or more fun than kind of just being stuck in the same place dealing with the same
Sure.
people every single day. So
That-
that was kind of appealing. Plus, their uniforms were cooler. So we just had all black tack out, like tack vest, all black BDUs essentially. I don't know, much cooler uniforms in my opinion at the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, what kind of training, the guy said, "Hey, why don't you join up?" Now, was there like a formal like selection process, and then you go to an academy? I mean, what did that look like?
Yeah, it was application process like anywhere else. I think the thing that usually helps you, I mean, like a lot of PDs, is you kind of have to know somebody, and
Yeah.
they say, hey, take a look at this guy's file, and then you come
Mm,
in and get the interview. And I think I came in a little bit early because they were waiting to start a training class. So there was a couple guys that kind of got selected. They were picking you, doing the selection process. But the cool thing is they would hire you right away, basically, and just put you to work doing paperwork or something until the training academy came along. And
oh,
we
okay.
did, I don't remember how many months it was, kind of regular old PD training academy kind of thing, where we did, all the stuff you normally do, shooting, cuffing, fighting, all that kind of fun stuff. So we went through that academy, and then when we come out, you basically did like, field training for, I don't know, it was like a month or something like that. You rode
Yeah.
with another officer, and then you got put on a team. And we basically worked with three-person teams. So you had a driver. We drove unmarked Explorers, so you'd have a driver, what we used to call the recorder, which is the role I usually served on, which is a guy who did all the paperwork, plus the person who initiated contact and did
Yeah.
most of the talking. And then the third guy would sit in the back, and he was essentially the runner. So if something breaks off in the streets, he's jumping out the car and pursuing. I'm going over radio, and the driver's driving. And
Oh,
that's
okay.
kind of what we used to work on three-man teams like that.
Now with the academy, was that like a state academy, or I'm assuming that the warrant unit wasn't big enough to have their own academy. I mean, who are you
No,
mixed in
well,
with?
we did have our own academy. The warrant unit is like a really strange creature. The way that it functions. I think Chicago or somewhere in Illinois might have something similar, but essentially it's basically the armed enforcement unit of the courts. So the courts back in the 70s or so, I was doing some research on this when I started putting the book together.
Yeah.
I found some old documents from like the 70s. So I guess initially, Philly Sheriff's Department handled all of the warrants.
Yeah.
And then according to the paperwork, I guess they weren't doing a very good job of it. So courts decided to create their own unit via some kind of, I think they had a federal grant, if I'm not mistaken,
Okay.
that gave them the money to put together the unit. And I'm assuming that's how they got the money to pay for the academy and all that kind of stuff. So basically, we work through the state, but we're kind of tied to the city. It was a strange kind of setup.
Yeah. So were you like connected to the state as far as like your pension system, getting paid, all that kind of stuff?
Everything like that they did through the city. Now, I don't know how they did it on the back end. Like, I think they might have
Wow.
taken the money from the state and then paid the city to basically put us on their books. So,
Okay.
like, my insurance and all that stuff was the same as, Philadelphia, any other Philadelphia city workers, essentially. So I had city benefits, but I think the state paid for them. If I think that's how it worked out.
Wow. So was your academy like a vocational school, or did you have your own
Oh,
building, or?
we rented our building, and they actually made us. When I went to the academy, we did it at night mostly, so it was like last out. We started, so we would be running, lifting, learning, doing everything from 11 to 7. Sometimes
Wow.
they had us out running the streets of Philly like Rocky up the steps. In
Yeah.
the middle of the night. It was fun.
Wow, that's how big of a unit was that when you were in it? How many members?
Not big. I mean, there might have only been. I'm not 100% sure on the numbers. Maybe 40, 50 people, something like that. Maybe like 50 investigators.
I'm
Um,
amazed you
it
would
wasn't
have
a
your
ton.
own academy. That's shocking.
Yeah. Yep.
Damn, that is amazing. I'll be darned. So, was there any animosity between your unit and like the city or the sheriff's department?
Yeah, the sheriffs hated us, and they were, honestly, there's a lot of bad blood, but most of it went back to, like I said, to the 70s. So, most of the people that were originally there when the warrant duties got taken away from them, I don't even know if they still worked for the warrant unit at that point. You know what I mean? Like it'd
Yeah.
been so long. But the sheriffs would give us a hard time, to be honest. I think they felt like we stole their job or something like that. So there was some beef there. Philly PD was cool. We never had any problem with them. We worked with Philly PD all the time. But the sheriffs, I think the sheriffs in Philly are weird too. Like in most places, the sheriffs do actual law enforcement work. In Philly, they ran the county, they'd run the county jail, and the buses running people back and forth from court to the jail and courtroom security. That's like essentially all they did.
Yeah,
Now that they reabsorbed the warrant unit, now they do some of that as well. Terribly, not very good job of it, but they do that as well.
yeah, it's interesting. I've had this podcast for about 4 years, and the difference in different, police departments all over the world, frankly,
Oh yeah.
it's just like I just got done talking to a guy that was a sheriff's deputy in Florida, and the sheriff's deputies were like the high speed cops, and the city
Yeah.
cops were kind of like looked down upon a little bit. And like where I work, it's the polar opposite. In the city of Milwaukee, all the high speed, fun, policey stuff was with the city department, and the sheriff took care of the courts, the jail,
Yeah.
and they had the airport, and they also did the freeway. So if anything happened on the freeway, but the freeway was, crashes and speeding tickets and, drunk drivers, that kind of
Mhm.
stuff. And, we're all like, that's boring. It's like,
Yeah.
that's the last thing I want to do. If you want to be a cop, they didn't do
Oh
like
yeah.
hardcore police stuff because frankly, they didn't have the numbers,
Mhm.
because they were doing all that other stuff. So yeah, it's funny to see how the differences in all these different, like departments and sheriff's departments and city, and now Philly Warrant Unit. It's like,
Yeah.
I was just surprised. I'm just like, oh, look at that. Okay, I didn't know that there was such a beast. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
So, did your investigations ever conflict with the local PD, the state, or the feds? Because you're a
Um,
small unit and you're kind of like doing your thing.
mhm. I don't know. We conflicted with them. I mean, we used to have task forces and stuff, so we had guys that were on teams with FBI, major crimes, ATF, all those kind of things. So there was a lot of collaboration, everybody working together on different task forces. Not really, honestly. I mean, for the most part, like what we were doing was very different than what Philly PD was doing. I mean, the sheriffs weren't even in the equation because all they were doing, like I said, is courtroom security and
Yeah.
driving the bus. So I mean, they don't like us, but we don't really interact with them. The only time we'd ever see them is when you go to court, and you have to go in to testify or something. You see them at doing the security, but that would be it. Philly PD basically handled different stuff than we did. Like we were just doing strictly warrants. I mean, when I talk to people about it, they think it's nuts. We'd lock up 20, 30 people a night sometimes. I mean, it's crazy. And you would hit 8 houses or more every single night. You know, most people you do one and you're tied up for hours with paperwork. Where we were kind of lucky, all we needed was a photo. So you'd print out the Philly police ID, the photo,
Yeah.
and a copy of the bench warrant, and that's it. Drive them up to the county jail and drop them off. And you could do it. We used to drive we used to have a 12 passenger van sometimes.
Yeah.
So somebody would drive with the van and just go from neighborhood to neighborhood, picking up people as we locked them up. And you just drive them up there like you're going on a field trip or something. So, so we got to do a tremendous amount of work in, a short period of time just during your shift. It wasn't
Right.
one arrest, and then you're tied up with paperwork for 3 hours. It was just house after house after house.
Wow, that's kind of a cop's dream come true where you get to hook and book and there's very little paperwork involved.
Yep. That's one of the other reasons that I loved it. Like, I mean, I had friends I went to high school with that were Philly PD, and they'd always be like, man, this sucks. If I make an arrest, I'm stuck for hours. You
Oh
guys are
yeah.
just grinding the whole time. So, it was fun.
Wow, that's amazing. To me, that's amazing. And that's, I have a couple of friends that were US Marshals and they're like, yeah, we barely did any paperwork. We'd just go get somebody, snatch them up on a warrant or whatever, or hunt them down. And it was, you know, yeah, that again, that's like a dream come true for a cop. But, you know, now as far as how did you pick which warrants to execute?
Well, basically, you had a couple different kinds of things, different types of criminals you're pursuing. So we'd obviously have people on bench warrants that had a court date and they didn't show up, so judge issues a bench warrant. But we also handled adult probation and parole. So if you were on probation and you violated your probation or you're on house arrest and didn't comply with the terms of the house arrest, they had a special EMU team that would deal with that.
Okay.
So basically, you had those three piles of people.
Okay.
And essentially, we'd come in, you do roll call. Sometimes there would be high profile jobs that are given to us by the lieutenant, like, hey, you guys have to go work these.
Yeah.
Other than that, you were just free to do whatever you wanted. And in a place like Philly, I mean, at any given time, there's like 100,000 warrants or something
Oh
crazy
God, yes. Yeah.
on the books. So you could just do whatever you wanted. And honestly, like when you first start, it's a lot of preparation in the office and you're working up all these cases. And then you kind of quickly realize that, if you're chasing down drug dealers and crackheads, if you're doing a credit history on them, it's not going to do anything for you, right? Or if you're
Right.
looking at the driver's license address they got when they were 16 and now they're 30.
Yeah, yeah.
So, it kind of quickly changed from doing a lot of homework and a lot of work in the office to just let's get out in these streets and see what we can get into. So usually when I was working, we would roughly work up a few cases that were given to us, and then just say, all right, let's go down to Kensington, which a lot of reviewers may have seen on YouTube, which is basically ground zero for heroin in Philly. And
Yeah,
I would just go down there with my team, and we'd start going. I mean, we had a lot of connections with prostitutes and drug users and different kind of snitches in the community.
sure.
So we would just go down to a crack house, go inside, say, "What's up, man?" Because all those people had warrants, and you kind of play the game with them, like, "Look, I'll give you a pass." What you'd say is we were allowed to give you walk-in instructions, right? Now, if it's crazy, if it's murder or something, you're getting locked
Right,
up.
right. Sure.
Short of that, we do have the authority to say, "Look, I'm going to give you walk-in instructions. Head down to the Criminal Justice Center on Monday and take care of this."
Yep.
So you basically offer them, and again, these are drug users mostly, so their only goal is to get high today. They don't care about Monday.
Right.
Tell them, "Look, give me two people, and I'll give you a week to sort out your warrant." And I know full well they're never going to do it, so I can just come lock this dude up next Friday anyway,
Yep,
right?
absolutely.
So, and usually they're going to give you somebody better, like dealers or higher level criminals or people
Yeah.
that are wanted for murders, rapes, robberies. So you go lock them up, and then a week later lock up the same dude anyway, or play the game again and say, "I'll give you another week." And that's kind of what we did.
Now, what do the risk assessments look like?
Well, we did do a whole heck of a lot. I will say this: most of the unit were former military. I was one of the few that wasn't. So a lot of our guys were, pretty well versed in what to do. We'd have case files that we'd work up. So basically, once you got locked up, a case file was established, which was like a physical, like a Manila folder or whatever they
Yeah.
are. And inside that, you'd have all the notes from every time anybody interacted with the person.
Mm,
So you'd have like a log sheet, and every time you went to the house, you'd put in there like, knocked on door, pit bull in the yard, guns in the home, whatever it might be,
yep.
or if they have mental health issues, or they might have something that's contagious, hepatitis or HIV. All that stuff would be noted in there. So what you're supposed to do if you're working up a proper case is you take the file, read through it, work it up, and then kind of do your risk assessment from there of, all right, what do we need to do? Do we need backup teams with us? Do we want to call in Philly PD or someone else, to have more numbers? And then kind of plan accordingly. Now, if we're just going and kicking in crack house doors, it's just let's see what happens.
Right.
And to be fair, I mean, we worked in the same neighborhoods a lot and with a lot of the same people, so you kind of knew what's going on. But there's always uncertainty and there's always risk. So
Sure.
it's a bit dangerous and a bit crazy, to be honest, what we did, and pretty amazing in my opinion. In all those years, one fatality, which is pretty nuts considering you're doing high risk warrant service,
Sure.
24 hours a day, 365 days a year.
Most of your warrants were arrest warrants, not search warrants, correct?
Yeah, they were either usually bench warrants, probation detainers, or things like that. Yeah.
Did you have probation or parole agents roll with you?
No, we didn't have them in Philly. In Philly, the POs are just strictly in the office. They don't really do field visits.
Oh, they
Um,
don't. Wow.
they were also in the same building as we were. So basically, we would do in-house arrests there too. So say when you go to meet the PO in Philly, it's basically just a booth. And
Yeah.
there's a table, like a small table, and basically maybe like two chairs on this side and a chair on the other side. And if the probation officer wants to violate you, they basically have a button under the desk. They just push it, and then that notifies our guys on the floor or two below. We send up a team, lock them up in the booth, and that's it.
Okay. So you didn't do a whole lot of search warrants then.
No, well, the only times we deal with search warrants really is if you stumbled across something, and that happened frequently. If you go into a house and all of a sudden, there's 10 pounds of weed or coke
Oh
or
yeah,
something like
then
that,
freeze the scene and
then
get a search warrant. Yeah.
yeah, and then usually what we would do is call up, like I remember like my first week, I had a pretty decent drug bust. Um, guy was sitting on pounds and pounds and pounds of weed, had cigar boxes full of cash and all this in the closet. And it was pretty cool because then we called up narcotics, the Philly PD narcotics team.
Okay.
And then they came down and basically we went through and worked up the warrants with them, did everything. And they actually had us, we went through the house, ripped it up, looking for everything. So that would be the only time we really did with search warrants. If it's like you stumbled across something that now
Mm,
necessitates, I have to kind of go a step further.
yeah. What do you think about the difference between knock and no knock? There's a trend of, knock only. What's your feelings on that?
I mean, we did no knock warrants, but we had to get approval to do them. So
Yes.
knock and announce was obviously the preferred way we would do it. But we operated 24 hours a day, so it wasn't any of that only in daytime hours stuff. Like we could go
Mm.
whenever. But occasionally we would take a door, but it's usually in situations where it's going to be crazy. Like usually if there was, if someone has multiple resisting arrest in the past, lots of gun charges, maybe you think they're gang affiliated or something like that. You probably want to hit that door quick and just roll in.
Yep.
But honestly, we didn't do them that frequently. I mean, I don't know, maybe like every couple weeks you'd have one or something, but it wasn't something we frequently did.
Okay. Before I hit record, we're talking about, the bitter cold, and
Mm.
it has a big impact on when you're doing what you're doing. I mean, how did you
Yeah.
deal with that? Because Philly can
Honestly,
get
it
pretty
was
cold
brutal.
and
It
hot.
gets cold and hot. I mean, we
Yeah.
get the worst of both worlds in that you can get, a foot of snow and it's freezing, or it can be 100 and you're
Right.
dying out. We were pretty lucky. Like I said, we wore like BDUs basically. So we had long pants and then like a dress, like a uniform shirt. But in the summer, they let us wear just like a black Under Armour shirt
Oh,
or a
nice.
t-shirt with a tack vest over it. So it was a
Yeah.
little bit better. I mean, that being said, if it's 100 and you have that vest on your chest all day long for, a
Yeah.
long shift, I mean, I can remember taking it off and you can physically see steam rising off
Oh,
of the
yeah. Yep.
it's so hot. Same in the winter. Like a lot of times we'd have jobs. Say you had a warrant and it has the address on it. You go to the address and then someone says, no, dude doesn't live here. He's at his girlfriend's around the corner. You kind of have one of two ways you can approach it. You can knock and try to talk your way in the door, which I probably usually try to do. Or if they play hardball, you have to go and get the warrant changed, which sucks because that then means if you hit a house, they're not playing ball. You got to get the
Right.
warrant changed. If it's 3 in the morning, someone has to go. They'd have a judge on call 24 hours a day.
Yep.
They would go and have the warrant changed, and the rest of us would just set up shop. You're just staking the place out, waiting. And if it's freezing cold, you're out there in the cold. Now, I'll say this, the lieutenant was cool. He would usually try to have a vehicle there and maybe like rotate somebody in every once in a while, just so you're
Sure.
not completely dying. Because if you're out
Yes.
there in icy rain or something,
Oh,
it's tough.
yeah. The
I
misery
don't miss,
factor is
I
high.
miss none of that at all.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, did you have restrictions on time of day or week or whatever to execute warrants?
Man, I've locked people up at Christmas dinner. Nope. We go every single day of the year. I've locked people up at weddings. I've locked them up we locked up Santa Claus. We had a drunk Santa Claus. Locked him up. Yeah.
What was Santa's warrant for? I gotta know.
Santa, I don't even know what he got locked up for, but I have a picture of it still of drunk Santa in the booth. We had like a holding cell at our headquarters. So basically, if you lock somebody up at the end of the shift and you didn't want to have to run up to the prison, you basically dump them in the holding cell, and then the next shift would take them up.
Okay.
We had the I don't remember what he was wanted for, but there was Santa locked up in the booth. It was
Oh
great.
my God, dude, that's hilarious. I mean, I've worked lots of Christmases, and I remember, we'd get at roll call, the sergeant would be like, "Hey, you know what? It's Christmas.
Mm,
If you gotta arrest somebody, arrest them. But discretion. If you're gonna use discretion, this is one of the nights that you should be doing it."
mm.
But then there'd always be that guy is like, "Nope, I'm jailing for Jesus. It's Jesus's birthday, and this is gonna be his present." Like, all
To be
right,
fair, in our line of work, holidays is one of the few times fugitives might be home. You know
yeah,
what I mean? So it
that's
is kind of a
true.
good time to go and grip somebody because they probably think, oh, cops ain't gonna come and get me on Christmas or Thanksgiving. And you're just like, no, brother, you're wrong. We're coming.
You're right. So the first chapter of your book, Philly Warrant Unit, was
Mhm.
pretty raw and emotional. Tell us about that.
Yeah, that details the only fatality in our unit's history, which was Sergeant Joe Leclerc. He got killed in the Germantown section of Philly. So essentially, there was a guy named Darian Hauser who was wanted. I think he skipped. I believe he had a rape case and he didn't show up for the proceeding,
Yeah.
and warrant got issued. So Joe Leclerc was a sergeant. It wasn't his case; it was one of the other guys' cases, and then he pulled in the sarge, to go with him. And
Yeah.
four of the guys went out there to hit this apartment complex, and basically, as soon as they came in, it's kind of like the fatal funnel thing where you come in and
Oh,
you're
yeah.
you're
Yep.
kind of stuck right here. And I guess Sergeant Leclerc went in first, and he saw the guy Hauser was in the bed with a gun, and started giving him commands. And the dude I think shot through the sheet, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh.
Wound up killing Sergeant Leclerc,
Mm.
and then two of the other officers also received injuries. Vinny got shot through the hand, like the wrist up here,
Yeah.
and the other guy Carlo, I think he got shot in the stomach.
Oh.
So it was a shootout. Guy wound up jumping out the window. Philly SWAT got called in, and they eventually found him hiding in another apartment on the ground floor. And he I mean, he's in prison now, but that was pretty crazy times. And that's the only fatality that we ever had. A couple other people got shot. So one of the guys who was actually at that event got shot multiple times
Oh
in
my lord.
other events when he was on, I think he was on FBI or Major Crimes Task Force or something.
Yeah.
But that was it. And it's, I think it's the one moment that, I don't know, kind of everybody in the unit, I mean, obviously it's terrible, it's a tragedy, it's horrible, but it's like
Yeah.
the one thing that, I don't know, binds you almost.
Yeah, that's true. So, reading through the book, Philly Warrant Unit, you know, eh, one thing that kind of jumped out at me, and I could be very wrong, was there seemed to be an absence of a shield.
Yeah.
Like when you're in a stack and you're going into a house, I don't hear anything about a shield.
No, they tried to give us shields at one point, but the problem is Philadelphia row homes are too narrow. So I remember we got a shield. I think we got it as a hand-me-down from somebody. As I don't know how the heck we got
Yeah.
it, but they try to make us use it at one point. And when we're stacked and you hit the house, if you try to go in with the shield, you can't make it through like the what's it called the hallways essentially.
Yeah.
So it's useless. So I remember at one point we got like a helmet, like a ballistic helmet and the shield, and we used it for like a week, and we're like, yeah, we're not using this anymore because it's just not practical. Just because of the way you enter the building, it the doesn't really work that well.
Well,
So
what
that was
years
it.
was this that you were with the Warrant Unit?
Oh, 4 to 7,
Okay, because
early 2000s.
they do have smaller, like lightweight shields now that would
They
probably
might
be.
have, but we didn't have it because we didn't have any money. So we
Yeah.
basically just hand-me-down stuff from I don't know where they got it, like other units. So
Yeah.
we just got whatever cast off they had. And the one we had was massive. Like
Okay.
it was huge. It was like a car door or something. It was
Yeah.
yeah.
So, what kind of equipment were you carrying on your person?
On my person, not much. We had 40 caliber Glocks. I think they switched a few years later after I left to SIGs or something. 40 caliber Glock, handcuffs, OC spray, and Thunder and Lightning. That's it. That's all I had.
Wow. Okay. Interesting. So, I'm going through the book, and one thing that I found interesting and amusing was the story of the prostitute calling the police on herself.
Yeah,
Why don't you
yeah, yeah.
tell us about that?
Well, what's kind of funny? Like, again, we work Kensington frequently, and you see a lot of the same girls out on the corner, a lot of the same drug users, and a lot of times they'd actually turn themselves in. So it's kind of funny. Like a lot of the girls, if they start getting too deep into heroin use, and
Yeah.
you start seeing them looking really bad. It wasn't uncommon for some of them to call and turn themselves in, so they get locked up and taken off the streets for a little bit. Because you see them, sometimes they go away for a month or two, and when they come back out, they put on some weight, the skin's cleared up because, they're eating and sleeping and
Oh,
doing what
sure.
they should instead of, just living on the streets. So, it's kind of frequent that you'd have that happen. People turn themselves in or call and rat themselves out. One story in the book is a human trafficking one.
Yeah.
My colleague, the guy I co-wrote the book with, my partner, he was on that case. Girl basically made an anonymous call to our warrant desk, which happened all the time. People would call in and rat out, your baby mama or your baby
Sure.
dad. You don't
Oh,
like
yeah.
them and tell them where they are and say, no problem, I'm on the way. And basically, someone called in an anonymous tip and basically went over to it was a hotel in the Northeast, and it was being run like a brothel essentially. So you just had all these girls in the rooms. And I know the one when they went in, there was two guys and 14 girls in the room. And then I guess they also had the hotel room next to them. So you know how you have the interior door that
Yeah.
opens up?
Yep.
And then in the second room, there was even more people. And one of the girls was like 14 years old and from Texas, had been
Oh
trafficked
my
up there
Lord.
for prostitution. Yeah.
That's so
And
horrible.
you'd have stuff like that all the time happen.
God, that's terrible. Now, reading the book, there was also some escape stories. Do you have any escape stories?
Yeah. Yeah, well, I think the best one is the one me and my partner Mark went up to Lower Merion, which is famous. That's where Kobe Bryant went to high school, right? We went out to Lower Merion for a pickup. So a lot of times what would happen is if somebody in a surrounding county locked up somebody with a Philly warrant, they didn't really want to go through all the hassle of having to deal with it themselves. So they
Okay.
would just call us and say,
Oh,
hey, we
okay.
got this dude here. You want to come get him? And we'd say, yeah, sure. And we'd either send the passenger van out, or if there's a team there, you kind of get sent out and you do the pickup. Usually we'd like to do this at the beginning of the shift so you can kind of go get it over with and then do your work.
Yeah.
Occasionally, if it's the middle of the shift and you get the call to go do it, you can't say no. So, Mark and I had picked up We had two people in the back, two girls in the back that had been locked up. We were going to take them up to the prison. And then, the lieutenant called and said, you got to go pick this other one up. I said, okay. So we drive out to Lower Merion. Normally one person stays in the car, the other person goes in, picks up whoever we're getting. So I had some paperwork to do. Like I said, I was the recorder. So Mark said, I'm gonna run in, pick up this other person, get caught up on the paperwork. So I said, all right, cool. I'm sitting there, writing away. And all of a sudden I heard like a click, like a car door opened. And I thought to myself, like, all right, it's probably Mark. I thought that was quick. He's back, already. And when I turned around, the girl had gotten the cuffs from behind her back. She slid them under her butt in front of her and jumped out the car. And now I'm stuck there like, what the hell do I do? Like, if I pursue her, the other one's going to take off.
Right.
What do I do? So I'm panicking and I'm trying to hit Mark up on the radio, but he turned it off when he went inside the, in the station. And I'm calling his cell phone and I just keep getting like the, like, this is Mark with the warrant. Like, oh my God. And eventually he comes out and I'm frantically pacing around and cursing to myself. And he's like, what happened? I'm like, she ran into the woods, bro. And this is somewhere I'm not familiar with Lower Merion. I've never been there in my life,
Right.
It's like, what are we going to do? And we looked for her for hours. We couldn't find her. I think in the book, I said something like, drug addicted prostitutes can go through a lot. Their tolerance is high.
Yes.
So if she's hiding in the underbrush for hours, she can hack that. She's a tough girl. And she got away that night, but we found her like a week later. And she actually still had my cuffs, which was hilarious. She had my cuffs in her purse. And that's what I was bent out of shape about because I didn't want to have to explain.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, my sergeant and lieutenant, like, where are your cuffs at, Kilgallon? And I'm just like, I don't know. They're in the woods somewhere. The girl basically said she hid in the brush for a couple of hours till she thought we were gone and then made her way to a gas station where she picked up a John who happened to have a handcuff key on him.
Oh, my gosh.
Cuffed her. Yeah.
That's so
I was
funny.
just like, it was nuts. It was nuts.
Yeah, that is. Now, hiding places. I've seen some people hide in some really small spots. You go through that in the book too. Why don't you tell us about some of the good hiding spots?
Wow. I mean, this is the greatest part of the game, I think, for me. I always enjoy the trying to find them, where they hiding at.
Yep.
I've had crazy stuff. I know we had one girl, girl we used to deal with frequently, frequent flyer, was very small. She contorted herself and got into, like one of those storage bins you have in your garage for the old Christmas decorations, fit herself into one of those. And the only way they found her was one of the guys on the team accidentally kicked it when he was walking by and heard, ow. And she was in there. I had a guy get into the wall. That was fun. So how you have like the exhaust vent for your HVAC or whatever?
Yeah.
So I guess it came off and the dude had physically, I don't know how he even fit in there, to be honest.
Wow.
Had pulled up into the drywall. And we figured out where he was. Like his wife ratted him out. Because we came and searched the house, nowhere to be found. And his wife's just pointing at the wall. And I'm just like, what the hell? Like, what's going on here? I mean, I know she's trying to tell me something, but I'm like, where? And then she points at the wall. And we're like, all right, dude, come on out. And he wouldn't come out. And I'm not going to put my head in there because I don't know what's going on.
Right.
So I sprayed some OC spray into the wall panel. And then you hear the guy coughing and all this. And that. We were able to locate him. And then the LT actually just punched through the wall and pulled him through the drywall.
Oh, is that funny?
Craziness. Yeah.
That's awesome. So being in Philly, you actually got a chance to meet Sylvester Stallone. Tell us about that. That's awesome.
That was one of the wildest moments of my life, to be honest. So we were cruising down Kensington Ave, again, just drug central, and this is 3 a.m. or something. So there's nobody out there doing anything positive or good at that hour, at that location. And me and my partners are coming down Kensington Avenue, and we saw like bright lights everywhere up at one of the pretty, bad area. So I'm just like, what's going on here? Was this like the crackhead Olympics? Like, what's happening? And the closer and closer we get, we realize it's a film crew, which again in Philadelphia, not uncommon. There's a lot of movies and TV shows that we shot, so not completely out of the norm. But at that hour, it really shocked me. So basically, me and my two partners pull up, and we're like, let's go check this out, just to see what it was. And my one partner, George, hopped out and kind of walks up, and it was hilarious. They must have hired local people, like local drug addicts, to be like security or something.
Nice.
They had like, high vis vests on.
Yeah.
And the minute they saw us, they just took off running, the security guys. And I was just like, this is ridiculous. And my partner and we just kind of like walked up. And there was a group of people standing there. It was like Stallone and 2 other people. I don't know if they're like producers or directors or whatever they were. And, went up and maybe talked to them for a minute or 2. It was nothing crazy. Yeah. But they were filming, I think it was Rocky Balboa. It was a scene where there's a bar what's it called? I think it's called like the flaming. It's like the flaming dice or something like that. I don't remember what it was
Yeah,
called. But basically, it was a real bar in Kensington, but they put the movie signs over the sign to make it
sure.
into whatever the bar was for the movie scene. And again, the original Rocky was filmed in Kensington, so it makes sense why they were doing it there. But had no clue they were doing it, and just stumbled across Sylvester Stallone. Got to chat to him for a minute or so, and
Oh, that's so
pretty
cool.
yeah.
Good for you. Yeah, I'm a huge Sly fan. I love Tulsa King. That's
Yeah. He
I'm
was cool. He was cool. I mean, he's working and we're bugging him essentially. You know what I mean?
right.
He was nice. He took some, a second to talk to us and whatnot. So, respect. And he was bigger than I thought he was. Everybody says he's small. I don't know if he had shoes on, but he looked normal. I mean, I'm 6 foot tall. He didn't look that short to me, but
Okay. Did you get any pictures with him?
no, this is
Oh, too
like,
bad.
this is the old days. I mean, this is one of the
Get the
problems I have.
Polaroid out. Yeah.
Well, a lot of times people are like, "Do you have any pictures when you were in the warrant unit?" I'm like, "Yeah, they're either physical pictures or they're just terrible quality because they're taken on,
Right.
a year 2000 cell phone, which is garbage, which
Right. Right.
kind of stinks. I don't have that many good photos, sadly."
Yeah, that's unfortunate. That would have been cool.
Mhm.
So, talking about like you guys, like the person running away and all that, what do you use for comms? What do you use for communication?
We had city radios, we had Motorola
Oh, you had
radios that were
city radios.
yeah, they were garbage to be honest, because they didn't
Sure.
work in some of the worst parts of the city. Like if you're in some of the high rises or other places, they didn't work properly.
Okay.
But essentially, there was just multiple bands. So there was one that was just like Philly PD and everything. There was one that was just the city. Like there was different bands on municipal radio, so we just used those.
So if the stuff hit the fan, you could call for help on your
Yeah, we had
radio,
the
and Philly
assist
PD
button.
would be okay.
Yep. Yep. And it's happened. I mean, we had times where stuff broke off. It got crazy. You call in an assist and, everybody's coming, guns blazing. They're ready to go.
Yeah,
Everybody's coming to help you.
very cool. One part of the book you were talking about the substandard bathrooms that you were when you're searching for something or whatever, and it brought back so many memories to me.
Yeah.
Or the first time we were going after a homicide guy, and I worked pretty close to 24 hours straight,
Ooh, I
and it was a fresh case. You were on it,
get them. Yep.
and I remember I had the shotgun, I had the Remington 870, and I was clearing the house with some other cops, and I bust down the door to the bathroom, and oh, I mean, the piss and the shit was flowing
Mhm,
over the toilet,
mhm,
and it was in the bathtub. They were using
yep.
the bathtub as a
Mhm,
commode.
yep. That's the
Oh,
same stuff we ran into because most of these are like, we call them colloquially crack houses, even though most of them are heroin users. They're not crack per se, but like
yeah,
you run up into houses and essentially what they would do is a lot of them would have, if they had electricity, it'd be illegally ran in, which is
right.
fire hazard mess. But you'd go up, like you said, you go up into the bathrooms
Oh,
and heroin addicts, if right, like they get constipated real bad. And then when they go, it's nasty. So
it,
the whole toilet's overflowing, bathtub's overflowing. Now,
yeah.
the one good thing, I suffer from nasal polyps, so I can't smell very good. So most
Oh,
of the law enforcement career, I couldn't smell at all.
you're
So if I went
lucky.
into
Oh.
the crack house, my partners would be vomiting and puking, and I'm just chilling, like no problem. Thing we'd lock up like a lot of times you'd lock up drug users that would have open sores like abscesses, and it would just be
Oh, yeah.
oozing out and nasty. And I remember coming down 95 one time with my partner, and he was literally puking out the window. And I'm just laughing my butt off because I can't smell it, so I don't care.
Oh man, yeah, that's yes. Oh God, like I said, it brought back a lot of memories for me. So yeah, this guy's genuine. When you start talking about that, I'm like, oh yeah, there's a special place there. Yeah, oh yeah, been there, done that. So how many times did you bring new charges on somebody you arrested for a warrant?
Honestly, it would have to be something like a gun or a lot of drugs, or if they fight us, you'd have to put charges on for
Yeah,
resisting. But I mean, I'll say this: I probably threw away $1 million worth of heroin. I mean, if we stopped someone and they had $5 worth of crack or heroin in their pocket, we'd make them throw it down the sewer.
yeah,
Throw it down the sewer and take them up on the warrant because I can't be bothered to go ruin my entire shift. I mean, honestly, if I took this guy to detectives, who'd have to take him to charge him with Philly PD, you go to the detectives and you do the charging. And if I brought somebody in with $10 worth of crack or heroin, you know what I mean? They'd never deal with me again.
yeah. They
They
would not be happy campers. There's no
right.
doubt
So
about that.
you can't really, put the charges on them. Now, if you find guns, obviously then I'm gonna have to waste some time, off the
Yeah,
streets dealing with the gun. But usually if it was guns, lots of drugs, like quantity, or resisting, and that would be the only time that we'd bring additional charges
Okay.
usually.
All right, gotcha. Now you went from one arrest to the next to the next to the next. Were there any that really stuck with you?
Arrests,
Yeah, like any
yeah, I mean, a
memorable,
lot of them.
like something that you're like, oh shit,
I mean,
didn't see
we've
that
locked
coming.
up famous people. We've locked up famous people. We've locked up,
Oh, like
you
what
know,
famous people?
a famous boxer. Let's just say that there's a
Oh, come
famous
on,
boxer. Yeah.
tell us.
Well, basically, he, he was on down and out on his luck. What was
Oh,
his name? Mildred Taylor. Um, and he got picked up, and it was nothing. It was some stupid case. But it's interesting that you interact with them. Like I know a lot of guys I worked with have locked up rappers. I remember being stuck. This guy named Beanie Siegel was a rapper, and I remember I think his step pops got shot, and we happened to be in the area when it happened. So,
mm,
we were down there working with Philly PD trying to figure out what was going on. So you'd see some of those folks. You'd see all kinds of people, man. The ones that stuck out to me, some of them, like I've locked up family and friends, I've locked up people I grew up with.
yeah.
I remember a girl who lived 2 doors away from me, I guess, got hooked on heroin and became a prostitute.
Oh,
And one day I'm doing paperwork in the car. And a lot of times while I'm doing paperwork, my guys would just go do pedestrian stops and just lock people up to stay active while I'm doing paperwork.
yeah.
And they put her in the car, and she's like, "Hey, Tristan, how are you?" And I was just like, who told her my name, man? Like, I don't want, again, my name's pretty unique. If you know my first and last name, you can find me pretty easy. And I was just like,
Yeah.
how the hell is my first name? And she's like, "Hey, it's Shannon. Don't you recognize me?" And I was just, no, I didn't, because she looked so bad.
Ooh, yeah.
I mean, I locked up my neighbor multiple times,
Oh God.
crazy stuff like that. I think the ones that stand out to me are the cases that I really wanted to get the arrest. Like normally, I don't want to say this may sound bad, but like I didn't take it personal. I understand I can't lock up everybody. And if you try to, you're just going to frustrate yourself and it's going to make your life difficult. So, I didn't really get too emotionally invested in it. Like
Yeah.
I'll go to work, I'm gonna do my thing. I'm good at what I do, but I understand there's limits. There's only so much I can do. But I used to enjoy sometimes we'd set up like pedophile nights where we just go lock up all the pedos.
Okay.
And that was one of my favorite things because I think these are people I want off the streets.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely. Yes.
I remember one case, I think that's in the book. There was a young guy who was wanted on some sex charges, like pedophilia stuff, and he was living in a small town right outside of Philly with his mom at an apartment. And the apartment actually overlooked a schoolyard. And
Oh
this kid had
God.
been in a motorcycle crash, so his legs are all banged up. So there's not going to be any foot chase. You know what I mean?
Right.
We went in there, we saw like a daybed laying in the living room, which is obviously where this guy is sleeping. Mom, oh no, I haven't seen him in months. But then when you search the house, there's men's shoes, video
Oh,
games, all
okay.
the stuff a
Sure.
20-year-old guy would have. He's there. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So, we're like, look, we got to find this guy. These are serious charges. We're going to keep coming back. You know what I mean? You got to work with us here. And, she's effing us and this and that, and, not going to play ball. And then finally she called us one day and said, hey, he's here. He went out for a bit. He's going to be back in a couple hours. I want you to come and get him. And we're like, what happened? She said she came home and found him masturbating at the window at the
Oh
schoolyard.
God.
And said, like, this is when I knew, like, I got to get this dude off the streets.
Yes.
And when we went up to lock him up, it was super creepy. I remember we went into the house and he was hiding behind the fridge, which was ridiculous because he was a big guy.
Yeah.
And you see the fridge like 3 feet out
Yeah.
of, 3 feet away from where it's supposed to be. And, like, when I initially pushed it, I heard, ah. And then, like, when they removed the fridge, he was standing there in his tidy whities petting a cat. And it was just the
Jeez.
weirdest, creepiest thing like I'd ever
Ah.
seen. And I felt like, what the hell is wrong with this guy? So yeah, I mean, some fun times.
Now, when you would arrest somebody on a warrant, did you ever have the issuing agency or like the detectives that were involved in a case come out to try and like maybe conduct an investigation, like gather evidence or talk to other people that are there, anything like that?
Not really. Like we would do NCIC and all that kind of stuff. So, we'd frequently pick up people that were wanted from, other states or other
Oh,
jurisdictions.
okay.
And usually if we pick somebody up like that, we just drop them off at the county jail and then
Okay.
they make the arrangements with the jail to come and pick them up for the other state
Gotcha. All right.
jurisdiction within the state.
Now, looking back, what do you think about the way the unit was absorbed by the sheriff's department?
I was gone by that point. I'd already moved to Ohio and went to law school. I think it's
Oh, okay.
tragic personally, just because the warrant unit was really good at what it did. And I
Yeah.
think if they put more resources into it and had, better staffing, more money, I think it could have really helped Philadelphia. Now, some of our guys, when the unit got absorbed, some of them stayed on and went to go work with the sheriff's department. Others chose to retire or do something else, which is what my partner Mark did. He left. But from what I see, again, I'm not there every day, so I don't know how it works. And the
Yeah.
guys I worked with were good people, and I have to believe they're doing their best. They're hustling and trying to do good. But their numbers are trash, quite honestly. They don't do the volume of work we used to do.
Oh, okay.
And in a place like Philly, you can't let that happen because there's
Right.
just so much crime, so much violence, so
Oh,
many
yeah.
drugs. If you're just half-assing it and not really hustling, you'll see it. And from what I understand, that's the case now. Now, again, I'm not directly tied to it myself, but
Sure.
from what I hear through friends and colleagues, it's a bit of a mess.
Gotcha. Now, you went from there, you got your law degree, and you went into teaching, correct?
Yep, yep. That's
Okay.
another one that I fell into. Never thought I wanted to be a college professor.
Yeah.
But I was basically, I finished my JD and then I was hanging around for a year. We had an LLM program, which is a master's in law, which was basically dealing with democratic governance and rule of law, so international development and stuff like that.
Yeah.
As my goal had always been to get in the State Department, I thought, boom, this is what I got to
Yeah.
do. So I hung around and did that. Wound up doing an internship at the Ministry of Justice in Kosovo.
Oh, neat.
Really cool stuff. But then when I came back, basically me and my family were getting ready to leave Ohio. I was going to move back to Philly or Florida or somewhere.
Yeah.
And they basically said the guy who was a criminal justice professor had abruptly quit in like July, and then school starts in like 3 weeks. So they needed somebody.
Oh, okay.
And because I had a master's degree in criminal justice already at the time, I worked in law enforcement for a bit. They gave me like a 1 year gig, and I thought I'd do 1 year and then leave and go do something else. And then 1 year turned into 15. Uh, and I
Oh,
finally
yeah.
just quit. I quit in May. I'm done teaching. I've had enough of it. But
Oh, okay.
it
Now,
was
what do you miss the most or least about being a cop? And if you had a chance, would you go back to it?
yeah. I mean, my knees don't agree, and
Oh,
my body
sure.
can't hack it anymore. But I would. This is going to sound bad, but it's the only job I ever really liked.
Okay.
Everything else I kind of tolerated. Like I just did it because I had to earn money and pay for my family. Law
Sure, sure.
enforcement wasn't something I thought I wanted to do, but then once I started doing it, I loved it. It was fun. I liked the freedom. I liked being able to work up my own cases. I liked the cat and mouse of me trying to outsmart criminals and hunt them down.
Okay.
I like the camaraderie of working with some really great men and women. It was great. The only problem was the money was terrible. I mean, I think we made like 35 grand or something to
Ooh.
get actually shot in the face 10 times a night. It's not a very good, it's not a
Yeah,
good trade-off.
it's not enough, that's for sure. So
Yeah.
what would your advice be to someone planning on a career in law enforcement?
My advice would probably just be, work hard, be prepared for anything. Because you're going to be, like we talked about earlier, you're going to be working on Christmas Day, you're going to be missing time with your family, you're going to be out there in the cold and the heat. You're going to have bad people doing bad things. And you're going to be shocked when the courts don't do what you expect them to. You're going to be shocked maybe when your commanding officers don't do what you expect them to. You'd like to think they have your back, but they don't always. You just gotta, I think you gotta not say cover your ass, but you cover yourself. Make sure that when you go out on the streets, you and everybody with you's coming home tonight. Everything else can be sorted out later. So my advice is just be open-minded, be prepared for anything, and just hustle and work hard.
All right, cool. Well, tell you what, I think that's a good spot for us to end here. Where can people go to find out more about you and your book, Philly Warrant Unit?
We have an X profile under Philly Warrant Unit book,
Okay.
so you can find it there. Also, we have a Facebook page, which we kind of put out information about the book or different police-related things.
Okay.
Book itself is available on Amazon in hardcover, softback, and like the digital version, Kindle or whatever it is. I'm currently working on the audio book. I'm recording that now, but
Oh,
it's
cool.
turning out to be much harder and a longer process than I thought it was going to be. So
Oh,
within
yeah.
a few weeks, hopefully, I'll have the audio book knocked out.
Are you doing it yourself? You're doing the
Yes, so
narration?
you get to hear my horrible Seth Rogen voice narrate the book. It'll be wonderful.
That is no easy task. I've talked to a lot of people that have narrated their own books, and boy, that could be a beast. There's no
Yeah,
doubt
and I'm
about that.
trying to talk clearly so my Philly accent doesn't mess up the
No,
book.
that's the authenticity. You got to have the accent. Come on now. All right. Well, you know what? This has been a great conversation. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for your time. I greatly appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone, for joining myself and former Philly Warrant Unit member Tristin Kilgallon. Thank you, Tristin, for sharing your story of how a small crime-fighting unit can have a big impact. Well, that wraps up another episode of the Cops and Writers podcast. If you haven't done so yet, can you take a minute and rate and review this show on Spotify or Apple Podcasts? If you have already, thank you. As always, thank you for all of your support, and, of course, let's be careful out there.